Hi guys, Di from Poshupcycle here in Melbourne. Customer's been in and they've brought us a rather large dining table, about a 10-seater, solid pine. I think it's got, well, pine, I think it's blackwood. There's no knots in it, so I know it's going to stand up really well. It's a little bit battered. It's had better days, but this customer seems to spot a bargain and this table is going to come up absolutely beautiful. So today I thought I would just show you some of the defects in there, how we correct them, how we sand, and how we start the process up with the prep, because this is going to look fantastic. So give me 2 seconds and we'll start the video around the other way and I'll show you. Thank you. So as you see, I've already started, but what I wanted to show you is, you know, all of these dents, scratches. The varnish has started coming away. It did look pretty bad. Got a bit of shrinkage on the ends, on the seams, so I've got some before and after pictures, so I'm going to show you that. But basically, just not to be frightened of doing anything like this. So I've already started here, and I was talking about shrinkage in the seams. And I filled that before I started sanding. So this has only had an 80 grit on here. So I'll just show you the papers, and then we're hand sanding around the edges. So it's only had an 80 around the side, hand sanding. But as you can see, we filled in all the shrinkage. And that'll stain up. It's going to be a walnut stain. That's what the customer wants. But have a look at these legs. These legs are just fantastic. They are huge. I mean, look at the size of my hand compared to these. These are just huge. These are going to be great. So we'll scuff sand all of this, and these are going to be white. But the table, yeah, so hand sanding all this edge takes time, but you know, it's worth it. And just come around the other side here. So this is basically the varnish, you know, shrinking and coming off over time. So this is what the whole table looked like, you know, and we've got a few sore marks in here. This one is not too deep, so I'm just going to go down and chamfer that out. But there was one down here which was too big, so here it is. So what I've done is I've filled it and shaped it, sanded the top flat, and then shaped the side in with a round piece when I was sanding, and that will stain up, and you'll not notice that because it's going to be dark. But just wanted to say, don't be frightened of picking anything up like this, because it is repairable and it's an absolutely gorgeous table when it's done. So here's the side. This one wasn't bad with the shrinkage, but this is what it looks like when I put the filler in before sanding. Yeah, so let's keep going. And what I've done is, this bit's had a 60 grit on it, so I put the 60 grit on to take the top of the varnish off. Not much, because it absolutely rips into the wood, so we can't do much apart from just go over it quickly with a 60 grit. Starts lifting up the varnish from here, and it gives you, you know, and takes up any waxes and anything that's on the top of the table as well, and grease marks and stuff. And that's a 60 grit. That's all I do with the 60 grit. Quick once over, and then we go on to an 80 grit. Now with the 80 grit, we start sanding, and you remember all those little dints? Well, this is what you get. So I've just got to keep sanding and sanding and sanding those till it disappears. And it does, because they're not really that deep. It's, once you take the varnish off, it's not too much, so it's probably about 1 mil, 2 mil. And this is quite a thick top, so it can take it. So this is how far we are in 2 days. So it's going to take a bit of time, but it's going to be worth it. So keep tuned, and we'll show you when it's finished with the 80 grit before we start on the next grit, which will be 120. Hi guys, back again. A lot of sanding being gone on, so we've been sanding this table now for 4 days. And here we are, hand sanded all the edges. It's come pretty good. And the table took absolutely ages, so I'll just go down the grit again. So we started off with a 60 grit, and we used that for scuffing up the varnish. So it didn't stay on it long because it actually rips up the wood grain. So we just went over the varnish, scuffed it all up quickly, and then we moved on to 80. So the 80 grit I used for taking the varnish off very carefully, very slowly, like the video, till my sander packed in. But we got a replacement. So that took all of the varnish off. And that also got into some of the scratches and some of the dents that went further down. So where we had scratches and dents, we kept going over and going over till they started to fade out. The 120, this started smoothing up the table, started to make it a lot smoother to touch, and we kept on going onto those scratches till they absolutely faded. And we got all of the scratches and dents out, so we used the 120 for that. Then we moved on to 240, so this was the final grit that we used to really get the table as smooth as possible. So we spent a bit of time going over on 240, and here she is. So she's ready now to clean up, and then we're going to put a stain on because the customer wants a stain, a walnut, and the legs, and just the base underneath. My little buzzy boy waiting. Aren't you, buzzy boy? Hiya, hey little fella. Yes. So now we've got these all scuff sanded up. We need to give these a good clean as well. Then I'm going to put them on the legs on top of old tins to raise them up a little bit for when I paint underneath. So we're going to clean up now with turpentine, just plain old turps and an old cloth. We're going to clean it all up, and then I'm going to vacuum all of the floor to get rid of as much dust as possible, and then I'll see you when we start the stain. Hi guys, back again. We're ready to do the base and it needs to be changed to white. So what we're going to do is we're going to do 4 coats of prep, and we are going to be using Taubmans 3-in-1 prep. It's pretty good, stain blocking, stops anything coming through. Pretty good, helps the paint stick to it. And I've used this for all this customer's items, and now we're on the table, so same process again for her. I'm going to be using a 38mm sleek brush, and of course roller, 4mm nap, and obviously a paint tray. So when I'm doing this, I just use the brush to get in the corners. And when I'm doing this, we're going to be painting the lip, but I'm not going to paint the lip today, all of it, because I've got no protection on this wood. I don't particularly want to sand the wood again. So this afternoon I'll be putting a stain on it, and then tomorrow a coat of varnish, and then once the varnish is dry, which probably the day after, I'll paint the lip white. So just all I do is I go in all the cracks and crevices with the brush. Show you quickly. And around the feet, just get underneath the feet there. We put those little stoppers on the feet to make sure, and don't forget there's always that little bit of a line underneath these, and then I use the roller. So easiest thing to do is not have too much on your roller, little as possible. And off you go. Just make sure you've got no lines. Get in there a little bit. That way. So little movements backwards and forth, make sure you've got no drips. I'm going to sit on the floor because it's easier. And I always keep checking when I'm doing it, just to make sure that I've never missed anywhere. Constantly checking and going over again. Make sure there's no runs, no excess paint. And that's it. And we work our way around all of the table. So that's how we use the roller and the brush. And that's going to take 4 coats of prep and 2 coats of semi-enamel. So it's now time to stain. So this is Feet's Watson proof tint. It's a walnut. That's what the customer wants. I've just got a rag. So this has had a stir, and I just put into a little container, and I use an old rag. So, and the reason I pour it into a little container is just in case, you know, you spill any and you haven't got stacks of it spilt over. So I'm going to go for the sides first here. I want to get in all them cracks and crevices. Well, that's good because that's the colour that all their furniture has came up. That's looking good so far. And then I'm going to start at the middle and go to the end and then come around the other side and do that. Because it's such a big table, it's going to take a little bit of time to stain. So now we've done that, I'm just going to clean up this edge so I don't get a line. There we go. Just dropped a little bit on the floor. There we go. So now I'm going to go down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So this is right in the middle of this slab, the fifth one. And just keep rubbing until it goes in and dries in. And come the next bit. It's drying pretty quick. And just keep checking I haven't missed any bits. And if you have, don't worry, you just go up over and smooth it in. And this cloth will be fairly saturated when I'm finished. I'll just go back over it again at the end. Up and down with lots of straight movements from one end to the other. So we'll see you when it's done.